I'm Cindy Hedrick Day, Interim Director here at the Caldwell Heritage Museum. Thank you for attending this morning's Coffee with the Curator. Before I introduce Dr. Hall, just a few housekeeping items. Please turn off your cell phones. The restrooms are located down the back hall. Men at the far end of the hall before you out the door, ladies down the short hall. Should we need to evacuate the building, we have the front door that you came in. Also around back, directly under that middle window is an exit. If we have to use the back door at the men's restroom, we can use that one. After the presentation, please visit, go upstairs, wander around, see what we have here, and help yourself to coffee and donuts when we finish. We have a delightful speaker today. I've gotten to know Dr. Hall over the years while I was a school counselor at Granite Falls Middle, and she would come visit and drop in. She's knowledgeable. She's an educator advocate. She has a heart for the classroom teacher. She goes above and beyond. She attended many events at Granite Middle, Career Day, Veterans Day, and sometimes we would just find her dropping in. And it was always great to visit with her. She took time from her busy day to spend time with our staff, students, and guests. After she finishes, she will have her book for sale out in the lobby. It's $20. If you buy it online, it's $24.99. Helen Phillips Hall was the daughter of Verner and Margaret Phillips. Grew up with 4 sisters and 1 brother in rural Caldwell County, located in the foothills of western North Carolina. Togetherness, family values, faith in God, high expectations were foremost in anchoring her life. Achieving a good education and pursuing challenging opportunities were also among the values that guided her way. She is an education professional who achieved her Bachelor of Arts degree in Social Studies and Education at North Carolina Central. From Appalachian State, she achieved her Master's of Arts degree in Gifted Education and History, her Education Specialist degree in the Principalship, and her Doctorate in Education Leadership. Her experiences include teaching middle and/or high school students, including 9 years as a teacher of gifted and talented students in North Carolina, teaching and/or directing programs in Georgia, Virginia, Ansbach, Germany, serving as resource consultant for academically gifted programs, and respectively as an assistant principal, and personnel administrator for Caldwell County Schools. She served as adjunct professor at Appalachian State University and Lenoir University, directed the NC Teach program at Lenoir, participated in Bill Gates' New School initiatives. She served on numerous boards, task force, professional, and civic organizations, and has received many honor and awards. She was elected and served on the Caldwell County Schools Board of Education for 8 years and had previously served on the Board of Trustees of Caldwell Community College and Technical Institute. And she was inducted into the Caldwell County Schools Hall of Honor in 2017. In addition to professional experiences, she has served in numerous church, civic, and professional organizations. She's a member of Doolatown Presbyterian Church. She's had many years of service as Christian educator chairperson, youth leader, coffee shop ministry leader, teaching elder, and clerk of session. She served on the Presbytery of Western North Carolina's Committee on Ministry, which engaged her in numerous capacities. She has served actively as a member of the Rotary Club of Lenoir for over 25 years and previously served on the Hospice Board of Caldwell County, Business and Professional Women of Lenoir, and the list goes on. She's married to Charles Hall Sr., retiree from both the United States Army and the North Carolina Department of Corrections. They have a son, Charles Curtis Hall Jr., a daughter, Sigrid Hall, and 5 grandchildren. In retirement, Dr. Hall is grateful for more time to spend with her beloved family, time to travel, time to write, and time to embrace new and different experiences. Dr. Hall.
Thank you. It appears that I like to stay busy, and I don't know if that'll end, But it did take retirement to get me to the place where I could actually complete a story that I've been wanting to write for many years. I'd write a chapter and I'd put it away in a file. I'd write another chapter, then I'd go back and it'd be confusing, so I'd rewrite both chapters and put it back in the file. I guess I did this over 5 years, if not longer, to try to get to the book, my story. This is how it was. And it's truly my story because as I speak with my sibling, and I have 3 surviving siblings, 2 sisters and a brother, and of course my children, I say to them, it has to be my story because if you were to tell it, it wouldn't sound the same. It wouldn't be interpreted the same. So as you read this, if you choose to read my story, you'll find that there are a lot of things that Sandra might say, no, Helen, I remember it this way, but I say, no, this is my story. This is how I remember it, and this is how it was. So that in itself lets you know just where the title comes from. My own perspective of what my life was like as a middle child, growing up in the Verner and Margaret Phillips family in western North Carolina, a township, or not even a township, a community of Doolittown. Some of you probably even are aware of where Doolittown is located. Near the Miller Hill and off the Virginia Street area, the Gamel vicinity of Lenoir. And growing up in Doolittown was special for me because I was a Phillips girl. There were 5 Phillips girls, 1 Phillips boy, my brother. I felt sorry for him because he was in the middle with me, with the 2 older sisters and the 2 younger sisters and strict parents. But we survived it okay. But growing up in Doolittown, it was clear that my dad had strict rules and my mother had strict rules about who we were going to be and how we were going to be from the time that we were toddlers throughout our lives. The expectations that were described in the introduction were just there. You were going to be a solid citizen. You were going to be respectful and honorable. And when it came to individuals that you knew, especially adults, that you were yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. You were not to challenge. As a matter of fact, you better be careful about how you even ask why. They wanted to be sure that respect was huge in the family and for the community. Sometimes I'll even say that the community might have thought us maybe a little strange or a little divided because we did honor such strict rules as imposed by my parents. But they may not have known that in that same environment, I was so blessed to have so much fun. A mother who was very, very talented, a father who was very talented as well, and who wanted us to be just part of an environment where we would be okay no matter where we went in this world, not just in our community or in Lenoir, but no matter what we chose to do in our lives. They raised us to believe that we could do it. And without any issues of race or color or religion, it was understood that we were going to be strong and do whatever we chose. Now sometimes I thought, well, this is because Mom had several brothers and sisters that were college graduates, and Dad had several college graduates in his family, and they fell in love and got married, and both of them gave up opportunities where both were expected to go to college also. Mom to be a fabulous singer, which wouldn't have taken but a second, and Dad to be a mathematician or whatever he chose, professional baseball player, because they had talents and experiences that were leading their way. But what happened is they fell in love, they had 6 children, and their job became raising their children to be the best that they could. Something else people might not know is that in this strict home of Verner and Margaret Phillips, I look back and I say, thank you, because they wanted to be sure that we would speak well, that we had proper manners, that we studied, that we, let me give you an example, that we could dance and that we could sing also. Because each of us, Mom and Dad decided that, okay, Vanetta and Kathy, they're the youngest ones, so we will let them go into dancing. We will be sure that they get dance lessons. So that happened. They had dance lessons downtown Lenoir at a place that is now a law office, but what at one time was a dance studio. Sandra and Brenda, my older sisters, were going to play piano. Dad played piano, Mama dabbled a bit with it, so they were going to play piano. And I was going to play piano, they thought. Well, for a year and a half I attempted it, but I was horrified of my teacher, really, truly, because she couldn't stand it if you'd hit a wrong note. And if I would hit a wrong note, I could feel her ruler on my backside. And that didn't help me find the right note. It just made me freeze. So after a year and a half of being poorly on the way to be a pianist, I just said, Mom, Dad, I'm sorry. If you will just let me stop, I'll dance or I'll do anything you want me to do. But I really don't want to play piano. Now I'm trying to reteach myself in these later years how to play piano. But they said, well, we'll let you do that, but if you don't play piano, we're not going to let you dance. I said, okay, that's all right. That's perfectly all right. So that opportunity I gave up, but the whole point was they wanted us broadened as children as we were growing up. And the singing and the dancing were probably part of their love for both, because we had a piano right in the dining room in our house. And as we would have evenings after dinner, it was not uncommon for Daddy to just tear that piano up as we were all singing and singing whatever he was playing, and that was a joy for us. And dancing, sometimes I wonder how our floor in our front room in particular survived not the bouncing, how we didn't go through, because they were dedicated to us to the point where we were singing and dancing together. But then comes homework, and you don't go to bed without your homework. And you don't not just do your homework, you have it inspected by Daddy. He was going to be sure that you were on track in your studies. You weren't going to have to just depend on your teachers to be sure that you were ready in your learning. Before we even started school, they were teaching us to read. They were teaching us to count. They were teaching us everything they could so that we'd start first grade ready for school. And I think we could have skipped along even as hard as they pushed us, but in schools at that time, you didn't get that double promotion and so forth, and that was okay. So we started in school in a one-room school in Doolittown. Doolittown School is what it was, from kindergarten through 8th grade. It was a small school, believe me, but I was the only girl in my class of 6. And I wasn't really happy with that either. It just made me feel that I had to always compete against the guys. So that was okay, because Daddy was going to be checking, and Mama too, to make sure that I did better than just compete against the guys, that I was able to excel. And please don't get sick and miss a day of school. That would be a tortuous day, because unless you had a fever and were really, really sick, you had chores to do on your day at home when you did not go to school. So limping, sniffing, snorting, whatever you had to do, you didn't want to miss a day of school. And so I imagine most of us had just a half dozen or more perfect attendances at school. That's the way it was going to be. Okay, let me go back home to Mom and Dad's rules. How many of you had parents that would say, when you would ask permission to do something, well, ask your mom. And then you go ask Mom, and Mom would say, well, ask your dad. And then you would say, how am I going to deal with this? How am I going to change this whole question so that I can get an answer? So if you didn't get yes or no from either one, you were in trouble. We were a family, again, that I said that Daddy was particular about how we would speak, how we would dress, the way that we presented ourselves. And at dinner, every day, if I could draw the table, I could show you the picture. Just imagine, here's a rectangular table in the dining room. Everybody always sat in the same place. It was just given that Daddy was always going to sit at the end. My oldest sister Brenda was going to be at the other end of the table. Mom was the center of the side on which I sat. So I was between mom and dad. I had to be so good. I was right between the two. Here's dad, here's mom, and I'm here. Here's Kathy, the baby, between mom and my sister who sat at the other end of the table, Brenda. And then across from us we had Sandra, Gary, and Vernetta. And it was a given. We didn't even ask about where we were sitting. It was dinner time, and they believed you sit together every day, you eat together every day, you pray together every time you sit together to eat, and you leave the table when dad's finished. And believe me, I think he chewed every bite of food 20 times, 20 seconds before he was done, because he didn't believe that you hurry up in your meal, that you make your meal something that you relax in, that you engage in, that's special. So that's a bird's eye view. The book tells you a lot more about just what living at home was like, and then what going to elementary school was like. We, at that particular time, were all born in the 40s, a family of the 40s. My oldest sister was born in 1941. My sister Sandra was born in 1942. I was born, there was a son born in 1943 who died right after childbirth. I was born in 1944. Then my brother in 1945. Mom and Dad were so busy. 1945. And then my sister Vernetta, 46, and Kathy, 47. So we were very close enough that we could have close relationships with each other without doubt. And so the family bonding was really strong. But the community bonding was important also. So everyone seemed to have a friend in the neighborhood that was in the same class. Do you remember the days of choosing your classmates, your friends based on your classmates? If your classmates were John and Terry, then they were your friends. If your girlfriends were Sally and Judy, they were your friends. Well, I was the only girl. So I believe truly that my dolls were my best friends. I maintained a doll collection without a doubt. And one thing I learned from that is that designing was so special. I had the best dressed dolls in Caldwell County, I believe. And I would hand sew and hand stitch and learn to cut out patterns and have fashion shows and everything with my dolls. And when that wasn't comforting me, I was writing poems, writing short stories. And then sometimes I would wonder, gee, I've been upstairs away from everybody for a while. I wonder if they're missing me. But as it was, everybody had their separate friends, so I just had to realize that even as a close family, I could always count on family. But when it came to best friends, that was a harder thing for me. Until I no longer had a one-room or a two-room school, and District 9 school was built in the Doolittle community. District 9 school was a consolidation of all the one- and two-room schools for black children across Caldwell County. And I don't know how many of you realize that. There might have been Harpertown, Bushtown, coming to Doolittle, Kings Creek, wherever the community was, you would have all the black school children coming to the District 9 school. And that was my first opportunity to have a girlfriend in my class. So, so that whole experience of wanting to be connected grew because the opportunities grew. And from there in the high school, even bigger, because not only were we the county kids coming together, but the county and the city kids were coming together at Freedman High School. You'll even tell in my book, if you venture into it, that some of us in the county felt a little insecure. Some felt insecure. I'm not saying I felt insecure, because there was always the issue that we were lesser than, because we came from the dirt roads, the outside toilets, the go to the creek to get the water, and so many things that were part of our environments in the rural areas than the city kids experienced. So we felt they looked down on us, especially if we had a storm or a muddy day and you get on the bus or your shoes get nasty, any of that. I don't know if any of you ever experienced that. Run into the bus, get on it, you've got a little mud on your shoes and you're embarrassed, you're going to Freedman. Those kids don't even have the muddy roads. So some of us didn't handle that very well, so it made us feel a little bad and we couldn't walk around barefooted. But my sister Sandra, I have to tell you about her. All of us needed to imitate her at that particular time, because Sandra would always keep an extra pair of shoes at the bus stop. So that if she had muddy shoes, they were not going to Freedman High School. They were not. She was going to tuck those shoes away in the bus stop, little shelter that was built for us for waiting. And she was going to put on her clean shoes before we went to Freedman. So I thought these lessons really, really, really matter. And not many of us imitated her so much because I don't know how she managed to get more shoes than the rest of them, but she had a way about her and did. But at Freedman School, I had particular pride in going there because it was my grandfather, Theophilus Phillips, who had been the founder of Freedman High School. And not only was he the founder and the first principal there for over 20 years, he also was the founder of my church, Dooletown Presbyterian Church. So there was always another idea, I think in Mom and Dad's idea of wanting us to be successful, to measure up, because we were blessed enough to have successful people in a generation before most people in our community had highly achieved black family members who had not only just graduated from high school but had also gone to college and had stayed in Lenoir or come to Lenoir and had meaningful accomplishments. So high school gave me an opportunity to feel that desire to do as much as I could do as Helen Louise Phillips. And I worked hard for that to accomplish a lot in honor societies and clubs and organizations. And of course I was a cheerleader too. I should have tougher lungs right now, but you know what tonsillitis can do to your voice if you've ever had it. So even being a cheerleader was important, but being diverse was very important, and being engaged. Freedman High School was a blessing in many ways too, because we had some wonderful teachers. And I write about the teachers, some of my favorites here in this particular book, the ones that made the greatest impact on me. And some of those same teachers had been teachers of my father and my mother. So it was not uncommon for them to say, well, you know, if you don't do this right, I'm going to tell your daddy. And please don't tell my dad. Or I'm going to tell your mom. Or your mom did this. And so we had measuring sticks with Mom and Dad from school. But one of my favorite things about Daddy, he couldn't be the greatest of all because he was actually the president of student council during his day in high school. And he got ousted from the presidency because he was caught smoking in the bathroom. So I thought, okay, that won't happen to me. I won't experience that kind of story. There won't be any smoking in the bathroom. So anyway, my high school experience was remarkable because we had teachers that really cared about you. They didn't just embrace us and teach us. They told us that they loved us. I mean, we had music directors and band directors and choral directors who had us in major competitions across the region, and we were always very, very successful in our competition. And as we participated in activities, they embraced us, wrapped us in their arms, and told us, I love you all. You are beautiful people. And that was such a thing to hear from the men that directed us. You are beautiful people. We love you, and we're going out and we're going to do great. And believe me, what does that make you do? It makes you reach for it. It makes you reach for it. So high school was like that. Graduating from high school for me in 1966 was the same time my sister Kathy graduated from high school in 1962. I went off to North Carolina Central University. And after coming from an environment like Lenoir, where the minority population was so small, I guess the black population at that time couldn't have been 10%. I went to North Carolina Central University and it was a whole campus of me. I couldn't believe it. I thought, gosh, there are a lot of us here. There are a lot of us here. Wow. So it might sound funny, but it really was exciting because I knew that there were many, many people just like me, people of color, that I had not encountered growing up in Western North Carolina, the foothills of North Carolina. That was a great experience. And my roommate was from Eastern North Carolina. Two roommates from Eastern North Carolina, one from Orlando if you ever heard of Orlando, and one from a husky. And they talked about how I spoke, being strange, and I spoke about how they spoke, being strange. And visiting with each other, we discovered that each of us, when you go from northeastern North Carolina to northwestern North Carolina, it's huge in being different. And if you just take that trek across the map, you'll find it out. Not only in the way that you speak, but in the way that you live and so forth, and the way that you eat, and the way that you communicate with each other. So I found that interesting. I also found it challenging sometimes, especially when I walked into the front room of one of my roommates and met this, good grief, handsome guy. Great big beautiful eyes, dark curly hair. I tipped and I by mistake walked into the living room in my pajamas after spending that weekend with Gene, and there I stood. I said, "Hello," and he said, "Hi there." I said, "I'm Jean's friend, I'm her roommate. I'll let her know you're here." Here I tip out of the room and go into the kitchen and ask Jean, "Who's that gorgeous white guy there in the living room?" She burst out laughing like crazy and said, "Oh, that's my cousin Charles." So guess what? That's the guy I married. The guy I married, really. And so I lived in Eastern North Carolina, taught school, first in Charlotte. After I graduated from North Carolina Central, I taught school in Charlotte, North Carolina, married Charles, and had to change my name from Helen Phillips to Helen Hall right in the midst of my first week. Oh, by the way, I did elope to marry him. I have to say that part too, because when I met Charles, and he just really kind of took me by storm, maybe I took him by storm too. I'm just going to assume that. But I called my mom and dad. "I've met this guy that I would like to bring home with me so that you can meet him." "No way." You know, that was it. "No way are you bringing a guy home." Well, there was a guy already at home that I had been dating that my parents really thought I would marry. They already had it set for me in their minds. So I said, "Okay, this isn't working." So by the end of summer, after I graduated from college, Charles said, and his mother as well, called me and said, "You know, we can have the wedding right here. Charles said, will you marry me?" And I thought, I don't know if you're telling the truth or not. Said, "Will you marry me?" I said, I'm not sure if you really mean this. He said, "I'll have my mother tell you." His mother got on the phone and said, "Charles means that he wants to marry you, so if you come on up, I'll plan the wedding." Okay. I took a deep breath. Had my ex-boyfriend take me to the bus terminal. We went to Baltimore, Maryland, where Charles was located at the time. Stood in the living room saying, "Okay, Helen, you can change your mind. You haven't said I do yet." So there in Baltimore, Maryland, Charles Hall and I were married. And I came back to North Carolina. I said, "You really have to meet my family now. You really do." So I called my sisters that were in Lenoir. And am I telling too much story? Okay. Call my sisters who were in Lenoir. I called my younger sisters. They were there with Mom and Dad during the summer. And I said, "I want you all to tell Mom and Dad that I got married." They screamed, What? I am not telling them. I am not. They wouldn't tell. So I said, "Oh gosh, I'm going to have to do this myself." So I said, "Charles, we're going to your family, and then we're going to my family in North Carolina, because you need to meet my folks." So we traveled to Lenoir, got to Doolatown, just a cross-section between Miller Hill Drive and Doolatown, and I hadn't told him where I lived yet, and I didn't live but a quarter mile away. So I got in front of the house, our house, and I said, "Charles, this is where we are." It shocked him so badly, he just sped up the road just as fast as he could. He couldn't stop. He had to drive up the road so that he could get his bearings, calm down, break some of the sweat that he was having and so forth, so that he could turn around and we could go back down and he could meet my folks. Okay, I said, it's not, here's my boyfriend. I'd like you to meet this friend of mine. It was, Mom, Dad, I'd like you to meet my husband. This is Charles. I think they were in too much shock to act out or anything, to say anything, so they were gracious in meeting Charles. And later in the evening, my dad said, Charles, let's take a ride. I said, okay, they're going to take a ride. Mom and I were both a little bit nervous. I said, okay, so he jumped right in the car with Dad, and they took a ride. Midnight rolled around, they weren't back. I said, oh my God, what has happened? 1 o'clock rolled around, they weren't back. I said, oh my goodness, what is this? I started praying, you better believe. That was when you just call on God. I started praying that everything was okay, and the phone rang. And as the phone rang, it was the police department. That wasn't fun. So Mom and I jumped in the car, went to the police department, found out just what was going on. My dad did like spirits. He liked a nice strong drink, and he had introduced Charles to his strong drink. White Lightning, I think they had both had, as they were riding around and they were getting to know each other. And so the policeman stopped them and took them to the police department. And at that particular time, as Mom and I got nearer, we could see my daddy. He was acting out so badly in front of the face of the police officer. I could knock you out, you know. And Charles was just there looking dumbfounded, like he didn't know how to reply. But they knew Daddy, and they knew that he was full of fun and full of stuff and liked to be full of other spirits. So we picked them up and took them home, and that's how my husband and my father got to know each other. So in a matter of days, he and I were on our way to Charlotte to my first teaching job at Wilson Junior High School. It was where I was teaching. Charles went back to Elizabeth City. He was a college student and went back to Elizabeth City. After a year, though, I left my job in Charlotte, moved to Easton, North Carolina, and got a job in Hertford County. We lived with his guardian aunt, who didn't like me very much. She liked me as a girlfriend, but she didn't want me to get married. She didn't want Charles to get married. After all, I was 22 and he was 20, so he hadn't really had many times to sow his oats or whatever she wanted him to do. But anyway, we went back, and I could tell she wasn't happy, and she offered us to stay with her until we found our own place. And we couldn't find a place right then. Like I said, he was still in college, and I was teaching my first year until I moved there. And then, in no time at all, it seemed, he was going into the Army during Vietnam. Here's Vietnam, here's Charles going into the military, here I staying with his guardian aunt, trying to be just as good to her as I could be so that she could learn to love me. But anyway, after he went into the service, it was a very challenging experience for me, because every year and a half, he was relocated. And I told him that I needed to follow him. Even if I had to go into the Army myself, I needed to follow him. So our first departure from North Carolina was Augusta, Georgia. And he was at Fort Garden in Augusta, Georgia. We lived there for about a year and a half, and I loved the independence. I loved the job. Lucy Carafolini High School, downtown Augusta. I was happy as I could be. We had been married about 4 years at that particular time. Then he got orders for Germany. And he said, Helen, I don't want you to go with me to Germany, because if I go alone, I can be home in 2 years. If you go, it's going to be 3. I wasn't happy about that. But anyway, I said, okay, I do want us to be home, and I'll stay here in Georgia while you're in Germany. A couple months later, I had the worst flu I had ever had, I think. I thought I was just miserable. And I was staying with a girlfriend instead of maintaining my apartment. She had 3 little kids, and I was helping her there. And I thought, I can't give the kids whatever this is I have, so I went to the doctor on base at Fort Garden, and he came back to let me know, congratulations, you're pregnant. And here's Charles in Germany. And we've agreed that he's coming home in 2 years. Well, that wasn't going to work well, so I just decided I have to tell him this. So I found a pair of baby socks, yellow baby socks. Too early to know boy or girl. So I attached a note to him and said, guess what? and sent him a pair of the socks in the mail. Well, believe me, before long, he changed everything, and I was on my way to Germany and had a really wonderful life there. I loved the 3 years living in Germany. From there, it was just every time you turn around, we're moving again from one place to the next. And I favored every one. I liked the experience of being in one place than another. My best friend in Germany was a German girl, and she wanted me to teach her English because she married an American and wanted me to help prepare her to come into the United States, to speak well, to communicate well. I should have said, let's reciprocate and you teach me German. But I didn't want to learn Germany. I didn't want to learn German. It was to me, it was such a harsh language. So, I mean, it was just hard. And now I'm so sorry that I didn't learn it. I came away regretful that I helped her with English and didn't have her do the same with me, with German. We left Germany, moved to Virginia. He was at Fort Belvoir, and I was lucky. I got another job there. Everywhere we moved, I was lucky enough to get employment. And that I thought was exciting. Now, in Germany, I will tell you one of the experiences I had, being a black female, working on a military base. My husband's commander asked me if I would teach a race relations seminar. And 90% of the students in the seminar were white. And I was to help them embrace other cultures, other minority cultures in particular. And the commander knew that that was not going to be an easy deal. So what he did was always have an officer in the back room in case something broke out and if I was in any kind of danger. So that made me really have a little pause about what is he asking me to do, that he's fearful that these men may just go ape on me or something. But I decided, okay, you are Werner and Margaret Phillips' daughter. You're going to do this. You are not going to be afraid. You're going to speak the truth. You're going to talk about cultures and how they exist and the conflicts that exist and how they can be mediated and go on with it. Well, I did just that. And about 4 of 12 couldn't take it. They just could not take it. And one said, well, I know, I never forget this one guy saying, well, I know I'm not prejudiced at all or have racial hang-ups because I married a French girl. I said, okay, all right. And he was in a position where he didn't see the French girl that he married as being a white girl. She was just French. But he had to try to protect himself in that way. But I don't think it worked for anybody in the room but him. And the 3 others that really couldn't take some of the realities that I presented to them about culture and the impacts of culture and racism and the unfairness of racism and so forth. So that was a challenging experience. I was a lot happier when the commander had me teaching speed reading to Special Forces troops. You know, that went much, much better for me. Or teaching the GED program, or teaching PrEP, the helping soldiers that just missed a course or 2 graduate and have a real graduation from Germany. So I had those kind of experiences that were quite unique as a teacher. So I love Germany, and then again had a second baby in Germany. Went over pregnant with my son, and before long I was pregnant again with my daughter, and I thought, Mom and Dad are going to go crazy. They will be nuts because they haven't even seen the first child. And here I am pregnant again. How will this work? So Charles and I just decided, okay, we just won't tell them. We won't let them know that I'm pregnant a second time. They don't have to know. We'll just let them know when the baby comes. But backing up a little bit, I did have a lot of difficulty carrying Curtis. And he was born prematurely. And he did really, really well. But I could not give them all the dynamics of the things that I suffered as a woman trying to just protect having that one child. So we didn't tell them about Secret. And we were going to name her Secret, S-E-C-R-E-T. That was it. She's our girl, and we'll announce it when she's born. But then again, my friend, the German girl, said, no, Helen, name her Sigrid. It's a beautiful name. Name her Sigrid. And I did. and it has proved to be the perfect name for her. But then I sent them notice that, wow, now you have a granddaughter. And I think there was probably explosions going off in Lenoir at the particular time when they got that particular announcement that now Helen has a daughter and a son both, and we've not seen either one except in pictures. Of course, I sent pictures as after Sigurd was born. But that makes Germany especially special for me. And we moved back to Del City, Virginia. Any of you familiar with the Del City area near Fort Belvoir? Moved back there, boom, I was able to get another job and enjoy experiences there. And in 2 years again, here comes the Army. Charles was going back to Korea. So if you hear me speak, you can just know that every year, every 2 years, every 3 years, he's leaving. And many of those times I couldn't even go with him. So we just realized that we were going to have an untraditional lifestyle because he had so many years in that coming out would have been, in his opinion, not good for the family. Because every time he wanted to come out of the military, we were having issues with the economy in the United States. And you find some men like mine that feel that if they're not going to be able to really take good care of their families, they're going to make whatever sacrifice they have to. So Charles felt that his sacrifice was staying in the Army, and it lasted 26 years. So during the time that we were venturing back and forth, I have to admit that I liked it. I have to admit that I could have continued traveling as a military wife. But then when I came back to Lenoir, and that was my husband's wishes, I was so fortunate to be accepted and embraced as an educator right in Caldwell County, not only in teaching, but especially in working with gifted children and in working as consultant for gifted programs and working in administration as an assistant principal, a principal, and personnel administrator, and having so many diverse experiences that I was able to achieve right at home. Other people are saying, if you're a black parent, you got to send your kids away. You can't survive staying in Caldwell County. They have to leave. Most of the time it happened that way. Many of our successful black students moved away. But I was determined that, not a martyr, but just an example, that there are certain things that you can do. Some jobs don't exist and you have to go away depending on what you choose to do. But then there are opportunities still in the county, I believe, that would allow you to be home. And so I'm happy that I was able to be at home. And being at home near my parents was huge, because there are two tragedies that I share in my story that would break anybody's heart. And the first one was losing my oldest sister, who was the best sister in this world. I mean, she, you know, the image of a big sister, taking care of her sibling, always being there for them, that was Brenda. She was beautiful, wonderful, strong as nails, and always made sure that nobody picked on her little sisters or her brother. Well, she was living in Winston-Salem, working with R.J. Reynolds, and had a really good position there. And a guy that was a next-door neighbor's daughter's boyfriend entered her home for a good reason. Brenda let him in, and she trusted that his coming into her house was okay. But in the end, she was beaten to death, stabbed in the throat, raped, murdered, of course, and the guy robbed her. So that, I'm better now. It used to make my teeth tremble just to even tell it. But it was the most horrendous thing, the most horrible thing that my family had ever faced. And if we hadn't been a strong family and gone through it together, especially for our nephew, Kenny, her only child, a son, her only child, I don't know if he could have survived it or if we could have survived it. So it took drawing on all the faith and love and trust that God's going to get us through this to deal with that horrible, horrible period in our lives. We recovered to an extent, went on with our lives, but this book also contains a second tragedy in it. My only brother's only son, the only one remaining to bear the Phillips name, came home from Lee's McRae on Christmas vacation and went to a party, and my brother said, Gary, don't stay out late. You need to come in, so much goes on out here. But he and some of his buddies decided they were going to Wilkesboro to a club where there was going to be a big New Year's party. And on his way to his car, a guy that had rubbed him wrong, or he had rubbed wrong in the club, shot him to death in the parking lot. So that was a second tragedy that I thought that we'd never get over. My brother and his wife in particular, I didn't know if they would survive, if the 3 sisters would survive. Again, a horrible situation. I thought, how can tragedy strike one family twice like that in such a horrible, horrible way? Then I realized you have to lean on each other. You have to lean on those things you believe in. You have to lean on God in particular. You have to hold strong to your faith. If you do any less than that, you're going to fall apart. So sticking together, believing that, holding together during the years, we've been able to deal with that too. As a family with each of these murders, we would go together to the court when there was going to be the opportunity for the person to be released. And in force, we always went forward and said, no, our family hasn't healed. Our family will not heal. You cannot just release this person that has taken the life of my sister, then my nephew. My only nephew that could carry the Phillips name. So many things that were hard happened in our lives, but then there were many things that were good that we had to embrace. As our children were growing up, we tried to nurture them the same way we've been nurtured in our lives by Mom and Dad. Tough love, but great love. It was huge for us to demonstrate great love, great faith, and the expectation of success throughout the family, to continue from generation to generation. And that's why at the back of the book I have a little note of generational empowerment, how you really do empower each other in the way that you live together and love together and support each other. So I feel that I've probably burned your ears. I'm thinking I'm talking nonstop, like I turned on a button and it said, Helen, go at it. So I hope that the things that I've shared with you give you some insight into what I've written in my story. This is how it was. Many beautiful times, many wonderful times, best parents in the world, best family that I could ever love. And I wanted them to have this at Christmas this year because I want them to tie together what we're just about to do, and that is just about a century. From the birth of Mom and Dad in 1922 to the next book that I'm writing that's a continuation of this story that I'll have done within this century, so that our children and their children can know what it's like to grow up through the Phillips lineage and be all that they can be. I'm going to zip it, and if you have a question or two, I'll be glad to answer it. Thank you. Thank you.
I have a million questions. The first one is, how long did it take your parents to get over you getting married without them?
How long?
Yes.
Without their okay about it? Probably 10 years. No, they grew to love Charles. They really, really grew to love Charles. And near the end of their lives, he was really special to them. So they grew to love him, without a doubt. But it took years. It did not happen overnight, really. And see, we weren't close to them. We traveled so much, they didn't get to know them as they could have had we been in Lenoir. Yes?
What year did you come back to Caldwell?
I came back to Caldwell in 1974.
So the schools were already integrated when you came back, right?
The schools were integrated when I came back. The schools integrated in 1966 when I was my first year teaching in Charlotte, because once the team that interviewed me even asked me, how do you feel about teaching in a white school? I said, I'm just excited about teaching children. It doesn't matter if they're white or black. I'm interested in teaching children. So that was an integrated, and I was placed in a white school with no presence of other black teachers in my area. So I experienced that, and at the same year, my youngest sister experienced going to Hudson High School, which was the breakup of Freedman High School in her senior year, she had to give up her high school experience due to integration to graduate from a different high school. And that story's in here also.
The reason I asked that question is because I know you have done a lot for the diversity in the schools of Caldwell County, and we've been lucky to have you for our children.
Thank you. Thank you. In my experience, I've not wanted to be identified as a black woman as much as I've been wanting to be recognized as a woman on a mission to do good. It doesn't hurt to be black. But I resented anybody ever thinking that I achieved anything because I was a token. That was one of the most resentful things that could ever cross my mind, is to ever be chosen to do something because I'm black as a token. I always wanted to be chosen to do things because I'm good. And my mom and dad said I was good. Thank you. Thank you.
You have been that example of, it doesn't matter what color, what you just respond and do and leadership.
Exactly.
So thank you very much.
Thank you. I saw one other hand. May I receive those that are interested in questions? Yes. It was, yes.
I wanted to hear about your children and what they're doing in your state grandchildren.
Oh, yes. I have two wonderful children that were classmates of some of the individuals right in this room. My son, Curtis, is 47 years old. He went into business, graduated from Appalachian State University, and did some work on his master's. And he has moved quite a lot. He had 6 years in the military before going into the business world, but he's worked in industry, in banking. As a matter of fact, he was in management here in Caldwell County for about 6 years until Broad Hill started falling apart. And then he said, well, Mom, I tried to come back home like you always wanted me to do, but I've got to go. And he did, but he has been very successful in business and industry, and is director of a facility that makes box products in Augusta, Georgia. Sigrid, he has two children, as a matter of fact. His son, my oldest grandson, whom I tell is my favorite oldest grandson, is at Virginia Tech in engineering in his second year. And Sigrid is marketing director and visual designer at Winston-Salem State University. Prior to that, she had her own business, Thumbprint Graphics, for about 15 years, and has been very successful as a marketing and designing person. My grandchildren, Curtis is my son's daughter, Nia, graduates from high school this year and will be going to Georgia State University. And Curtis is saying, ooh, I'm going to have to get these out of the house. So, and Sigrid, for years, said, I'm not having children. I don't need children. My profession is going to be my child, and I've got puppies and cats. So it didn't work that way very long. She has 3 children, all 3 sons, 1 9, 1 7, and 1 2 years old. So they're making me proud, indeed. Surely. Any other questions?
What years were you at Freeman High School?
I was at Freeman High School in 58 to 62. I graduated in 1962. And loved it. It was a good school. But I've got stories there too. Thank you. I think my glasses, I didn't even have to, I didn't even crack the book open. I guess I have some, didn't even do it. I had so much information. I'm sorry if I wore you.
No. Thank you, Dr. Hall. What a delightful, great story. And how many more stories are out there? How many of you have your own story to pass along? I learned things about Dr. Hall I did not know. And I thought I knew a lot. I'm amazed. What a gracious lady. The example you've set has and will open doors for those who follow. Faith, family, strength, and standing together are traits we need to be instilling into our youth of today, and to stand firm and stand strong. And it comes from examples like you.
Thank you.
Family story is important, and being just pretty recently retired, a lot of our students do not know their family stories. We need to change that. We need to get them in places like this to talk to their parents, their grandparents, their aunts, their uncles, their neighbors, whoever, to learn who they are, who they're going to become. And it's with strong family, strong parents, that we get those. Dr. Hall will be out signing her book. It is $20. Please stop and grab one. Our next coffee is February 21st, 10 o'clock, and we will have Bethel Colony here. They will be having some of their, talking about their program, their history. They'll have some guys here that will probably be singing for us, and if you've not heard them sing, they're amazing. They sang for us impromptu when we had the cookout, and it was 80 voices, just amazing. So come and join us with that, and if you're not on our email list and you want to be, let me know and we will put you on it. And thank you for coming, I really appreciate it, and please hang out with Dr. Hall, hang out with our museum. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hall, for this wonderful presentation today. Please support our Caldwell Heritage Museum, 112 Vaden Street, Lenoir, North Carolina, 28645. Thank you.